Sure.
Okay, so today we're joined by Karen Waltzer. She's the Public Outreach Coordinator for the Barnegat Bay Partnership. She'll be sharing the 8 steps toward creating a Jersey-friendly yard today. And a quick note that today's programming is part of ACUA's Virtual Earth Month celebration. We have programming for all ages scheduled throughout Earth Month, which is April. Please visit acua.com/Earth Month to see our upcoming schedule of events and sign up for our email reminder. So Karen, if it's okay, I'll turn things over to you now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for having me. Today, I'm going to talk about the Jersey Friendly Yards website and all the great resources and tools that are on there for you to make changes in your own yard, right? Landscape for a healthier yard and also a healthier environment. And I just want to mention that there are 3 partners in the Jersey Yards Initiative. Barnegat Bay Partnership actually created and manages the website. We got funding from New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection back in 2013. The website was finished and launched in 2015, so this is our 6th year. And we partner with Rutgers Cooperative Extension of Ocean County and also the Ocean County Soil Conservation District on presenting programs, conferences, webinars, and kind of furthering the education that goes along with the website. I am not able to forward my slide.
Would you like to unshare your screen and then reshare it?
I guess. I've never had that happen before. Let me try that. Stop sharing. Sorry about that, folks. I'm actually going to share this again. That works. Okay, the other one froze up, I guess, for some reason. Okay, so I am the Public Outreach Coordinator for the Barnegat Bay Partnership. And in case you've never heard of this before, we're one of 28 national estuary programs. There are actually 3 in New Jersey. So for such a small state, we're really lucky to have 3 national programs here. Besides us, there's the Delaware Estuary Program and also the New York, New Jersey Harbor Estuary Program. So we are an estuary-rich state. Our program has more than 25 partners. That's the way the estuary programs work. So all the organizations work together to do actions that will help protect the bay and restore the bay. We're really focused on clean water, lots of water supply, and healthy wildlife habitat. Uh-oh. Same problem. Oh,
there it is.
There, now I got to go back. I went too far. Wow. Sorry about that. You just saw the quick version. All right, let's go again. Maybe I need to move faster with the slides. So as I said, we're very concerned about water quality, and this is a statewide issue. So, even though I'm representing Barnegat Bay Partnership, same issues in Atlantic County and your area. Clean water is kind of under siege right now. There's a lot of nutrients that get into our rivers, our streams, and eventually our bays. And this kind of fuels an overgrowth of plants, including algae and aquatic plants that can kind of choke the waterways. And also when they die and decay, that uses up oxygen in the waterways, including the Barnegat Bay. So when that sucks up the oxygen, that's really bad for the fish that live there and all the other wildlife that lives there. And of course, it's not good for us either. So one of the things that Barnegat Bay Partnership really wanted to focus on, and that is the reason that we launched the website, is we want people to think about what they're doing in their own yards. because many of these pollution sources are coming from everywhere. There's a big word for that. It's NPS, non-point source pollution, which means you can't actually pinpoint exactly where it's coming from because it's coming from a lot of different places. So the classic example are lawns. So lots of people fertilize their lawns. When it rains, the water that comes off of that lawn, some obviously soaks in, but a lot does not and runs off down our driveways, down our streets, into storm drains, and that's carrying pollution with it, including fertilizers that are laying there on the lawn. When those fertilizers, which you're doing a good job on the lawn, right, they help the turf grass to grow, not so good when it gets in our water, because like I said, that kind of creates an overload of nutrients, an overgrowth of algae and other plants that are affecting the water quality. So the other problem with lawns are that they are wildlife deserts. Okay, so if you look at that lawn, one thing is growing there, turf grass. You don't see a variety of blooming plants. You don't see a variety of shrubs and trees and layers of growth that support our wildlife. It's a monoculture and very little actually uses turf grass. So with the website, we decided to encourage people to think about what they're doing in their yards. And we have 8 steps to making your yard more environmentally friendly and healthier for you and your family. It starts with some basics, plan before you plant. So that step actually asks you to go out, take a look at your yard, what's already growing there. Do you have any invasive plants? Do you have any functions that you want your plantings to fulfill? Like, do you want to create a screening? How do people walk around the yard? And then you kind of make a sketch. So that's the first step. The other steps all very, very interestingly tied together with each other. So start with healthy soil. Obviously, to have successful plantings in your yard, you need healthy soil. Water wisely, don't overwater. And there's lots of tips on that page on how to conserve water in your yard, because overwatering is actually very unhealthy for the plants in your yard. And of course, the more you water, you're using up valuable water supplies. And also that water, just like rain, will run off the yard and possibly carry pollutants with it. Fertilize less, just talked about that. Manage pests responsibly. That has to do with reducing and hopefully eliminating the use of pesticides, which is very unhealthy for wildlife and for humans. Reduce lawn size. So that ties into the previous steps. Lawns are very high maintenance plantings. Lawns typically are fertilized. Oftentimes pesticides are used to control turf grass pests and also need a lot of watering. So by reducing your lawn size, that will help with all the other steps. And of course, create wildlife habitat. Very important. And the last step, 8, is reduce, reuse, recycle in your yard. A lot of tips there about how to compost the organic materials in your yard and reuse them. So your leaves, your grass clippings, and of course, even things, kitchen scraps that are non-meat, non-dairy, can all be composted, and that compost will make your soil healthier. So that relates back to step 2. So they kind of all interrelate. And one of the main things I'll talk about today is how native plants actually connect all of those steps. Native plants are the plants that have been around here for hundreds, if not thousands of years. They've evolved to be very well adapted to our soils, our climate, even the other plants and animals around them. So they are more resistant to pests. So you put all those things together and they need less water. They need little to no fertilizers or pesticides. So they are much healthier for the environment. And then of course they provide really important habitat for the birds, pollinators, and all the other wildlife that we love. One of the great things about native plants is, and the reason they are so well adapted, is they have very healthy and deep root systems. This is a poster. I always like to show this because if you can see my cursor, all the way up on the left side of the screen, this shows you the depth of turf grass roots. So they go down for a few inches, maybe up to 6 inches. That's as far as they go. The rest of the chart shows you native plants. And every one of those goes down several feet, some more than others. But, you know, it's probably a little hard to see the numbers on the screen. But this one, for example, this root is going down to 14 feet. And what that means is they are able to pull nutrients from the soil much more efficiently. You see the healthy root systems. Every one of those roots creates a channel so that when it does rain, water can more easily soak into the soil. You're making your yard like a sponge. So instead of the water running off and carrying those pollutants with it, it gets back down into the soil and also recharges our drinking water, our aquifers. So very, very important. And of course, one more thing I want to mention is you see the flowers at the top. So, you know, this chart is just showing flowering perennials, but trees and shrubs would fill the same roles. That's providing food, shelter, nesting sites for wildlife. And, you know, just to repeat, they're the foundation of our food web. So, you know, they need native plants. They are not really adapted to feed on some of the non-native plants that we put in our yard. So anytime you put a native plant in, you're helping wildlife. And if enough people do that, you put some native plants in your yard, your neighbor does, it ends up kind of reconnecting corridors for wildlife so that they can more easily find the food and the habitat that they need to survive instead of it being piecemeal here and there. So on the Jersey Yards website, one of the great tools that you'll find is the interactive yard. And it is a way to kind of practice the steps. The 8 steps that I just went over, there's a full page about each one on the website with more information and also links to other resources. Most of the resources on the site are Rutgers Cooperative Extension, New Jersey-based resources, the Native Plant Society of New Jersey, and some outside ones, but all scientifically based, so you can rely on them. Now, if you do the interactive yard, you can run through the steps in a more fun way, actually. So, you know, it starts with a generic New Jersey yard, kind of a typical yard with a couple planting beds around the house, a few trees, and a lot of lawn. So if you look on the right, you'll see some of the steps, you know, if you do decide to try it, that you'll go through. You'll remove some invasive plants, and they give you examples of that. And it's all like you'll click and some of the plants you see will disappear when you're removing them, and then you'll add beds and click to bring new plants in. So it gives you a lot of ideas of what you can do in your own yard. Now, when you go through the steps, you practice, and at the end, here's what you see. So let me just go back for a sec. So that's the yard, right? All that lawn, some plantings. And here's what you've created, you know, going through those steps in the interactive yard. You have added a lot of beds of native plants. Let me show you a different view. That's looking from the front. So what I wanted to point out here is you really transformed this yard into a yard that will capture that stormwater. It'll keep it going into the soil, into the ground, like we mentioned before, reducing runoff of water, reducing the pollution that runoff carries with it, and supporting wildlife. So you see a lot of these beds are strategically placed around the edges of the yard. And there's a reason for that. So you, like most people, do want to keep some yard, turf grass lawn area, you know, to walk, to maybe, you know, a play area for kids, for pets, you know, lots of different reasons. But just by circling that yard, those planting beds, you've made it much healthier, and you'll be able to capture that stormwater and pollution. And I always like to show this as an example of someone who actually did just that. They used the steps in the Jersey friendly yard. They had mostly lawn before in the front of their house. I hope you can see they left a strip of grass, right? So that's the way they can walk around from the front to the back. And they added beds of native plants. And I think they did a really good job. I think it looks nice. So another point I like to make with this slide is that some people have it in their mind that native plants mean kind of a wild looking lawn or yard, but that's not really true at all. This is an example of a formal landscape design using native plants. And one other example I want to show you. So here's a yard in Toms River, New Jersey, a small front yard with some struggling grass because it's very sandy soil there. So she was not happy, with the way it looked. And also she's very interested in pollinators. So she wanted to transform her front yard. And there she is, she's waving, that's Phyllis, this is her yard. So she designed this using the searchable plant database, which I'll show you in a couple minutes. And she wanted, again, a pathway. Instead of leaving it grass, she decided to wood chip it. And then she's got native plants up against the house and a nice strip of native plants along the street. And here's another view. And she's really happy with it. And hopefully some of you can try it too. And of course, I always suggest start small, maybe just pick one area to work on. And native plants are so low maintenance, once you get them in, you might have to water them the first year until they're established. And then they should be good to go with very little maintenance. So I like to just point out where we live, the coastal region of New Jersey, we have some challenging conditions. Number one, sandy soil. So that sandy soil is often low in nutrients, a little bit on the low pH side, a little acidic. If you do live near the water, near the ocean or bay, sometimes you will get that salt spray coming off. You'll get some windy conditions. The whole area, sometimes we get some summer droughts. And with the sandy soil, that puts stress on plants. And again, if you live near the water, you might get some flooding, some high tides. So these are all challenges, but you can absolutely find native plants that will be adapted to all of these challenges. So if you go to the Jersey Yards website, it's really easy to remember, just jerseyyards.org. Go to the searchable plant database when you're ready to start looking for plants. And it starts out with almost 400 different species, the majority of which are native. And what you would do is, through that assessment of the yard that you should do, you should know the conditions, and then you'll use these filters. I'll give you some examples. So some of the things you'll select while you're searching is your region, which will be the coastal plain, Barrier Island coastal. So it's not just Barrier Island, but just like kind of the whole coastal area. And then you'll pick your plant type. You could keep it open and search for everything at once, but you might want to narrow it down to the specific type of plant you're looking for. And then I suggest you check yes for native plants. We have some non-natives in there. Of course, none of them are invasive. We wanted to give folks some other options, including some annual plants, which are for the most part not native. Also, you might want to attract a specific wildlife to your yard. And if you do, you can make that selection. You need to know your light requirements. So you would choose that, whatever you determine. If you do live near the water and you get salt spray or occasional flooding, then it would probably be a good idea to pick at least medium salt tolerance. If you pick high, you're really going to kind of narrow down your choices, as you can see. Your soil type, I'm going to guess most of you will have sandy. Very highly recommended that you get a soil test so you know exactly what your soil type is, and importantly, your pH. The soil test will also talk about the drainage of your soil, which is determined, mostly by the soil type that it is. And again, if you want really low maintenance, go with either medium or high drought tolerance. Okay, so now that, for my example of what I selected, you can see on the left, above all the filters, what I've chosen. You can X one out at any time, or if you want to start all over again, you can clear them all out. This is the list, and you're only seeing part of it, that met all of these requirements that I entered. And once you have that list, you can put them into a savable, not savable, but a printable list. And this is what it would look like. When you first go in to the database, you can register and sign in, and that allows you to save whatever plants you decide you want after you've developed your list into this page, and then you can print it. And then when you're ready to buy, the website does have a page on where you can buy them in New Jersey. And they are by county. So you could go to that page, look up Atlantic County. There's a couple good nurseries in your area. Earth First Nursery is one. There used to be a nursery, Clemenson Nursery, that was great, but they closed down. And then there is one in Mays Landing, Summer Sweet. So you have a couple in your area for sure. And you can also order them online. There are more and more native plant nurseries that will ship them directly to you. So you don't have to worry about going there physically. So I did have a few examples. Oops, I should have changed that. Some native plants for barrier islands. I did a talk for LBI. So these are some of the plants, and I'll do a run through of some of these examples for you just to give you some ideas, and you would find these in the searchable plant database. So beach plum, we all know how great that does on the beach itself. So it can take super sandy, dry soils, salt spray, all of that. If you plant it more inland, it will get taller, fuller, and you'll get even more fruit. Red chokeberry, another really great shrub. So these first few are shrubs, woody shrubs. So, you get these beautiful early April flowers. And it's really important to kind of, when you're picking plants for your yard, try to have 3 seasons of bloom. So you want to have a couple plants at least that bloom in early spring. That'll provide nectar for pollinators, those, as soon as they're emerging. And so on and so on through summer and into fall. This particular plant looks really beautiful. I don't have a photo of it, but it turns bright red. The leaves turn bright red in fall. And then you get these red berries, winter food source for birds, and they'll hang on into the winter, and they look beautiful. I think pretty much all of us are familiar with Bayberry. It's semi-evergreen. So you can actually prune this, which is why I put that photo on the right end. You can shape it and prune it, and it makes a really, really nice shrub. And again, the fruits are a food source for birds in the winter. Inkberry, another evergreen that provides berries for wildlife in the winter. This is particularly good for wet sites. And also it has high wind resistance. So that's, if you live kind of on the bay side of things and in an area that's a little wet, this would be a good plant. People are looking for ground covers that are native. This is a great one. Bearberry, it's a Pinelands native plant, good throughout our whole area. It gets these nice red berries and it has green, like leathery leaves. So those leathery leaves are an indication that it is very resistant to drought, and it is. And the leaves hang on through the winter, but kind of turn a burgundy color, very, very attractive, very low growing, really drought tolerant, and it makes a great ground cover. Blue False Indigo. Now we're getting into May and June. That's when this blooms, and its seed pods are so attractive, like they're used in flower arrangements, and it's just a great plant. Golden Alexanders, yellow, and excellent plant for pollinators, super easy to grow, and it's salt tolerant. Purple coneflower. Now we're getting into summer, right? June through August is when it blooms. This is one of the toughest plants you can put in your yard. It's a nectar source for pollinators throughout the summer. Birds eat the seed in the summer and the fall. This plant will tolerate everything. Sandy soil, poor soils, drought, heat, humidity, salt. It's one of the toughest ones around. Butterfly weed. Okay, so another summer bloomer, and this one is a host plant for monarch butterflies and other butterfly larvae. So they need, monarchs need milkweed as a host plant. Without it, they don't survive. So if you can plant some kind of milkweed in your yard, it's always a good thing. And this is a really, really tough plant. Their seed heads are also used in dried flower arrangements, very drought tolerant. Need a drink for a sec. Orange cone flower. Again, kind of starts in the summer. It really does have a long bloom time. It goes all the way into the fall. And just like many of the other ones, right, a nectar source, birds eat the dried seeds. Here's another good one, rose mallow for wet areas. Now you will see this growing in marshes, salt marshes. So it's a good plant, salt tolerant plant, and can take wet areas. You'll see these growing a lot in detention basins. Really beautiful, large flowers of all colors, and it's a hummingbird magnet. Eastern showy Ester. Now we're getting to the plants that bloom more towards the end of the summer into fall. Does really well, again, in dry sandy soils and tolerant of salt spray. Same thing with Maryland golden Ester. It's a great ground cover, doesn't get too tall. The leaves grow low. The reason it says 1 to 2 feet is when it flowers, its stalks will shoot up and make it a bit taller. When it's not blooming the rest of the year, it just makes a really nice ground cover. And Seaside Goldenrod, we're all familiar with that. That is another really great plant for dry areas. It's waxy leaves. They're very thick leaves, and it deters salt and sand. And keeps it from drying out. Another great late season nectar source for pollinators, and it attracts so many different insects. It really attracts a lot of beneficial insects that are good for your garden. A few examples of grasses that are good to put in your yard. Don't forget the grasses, they're important too. And filled in with flowering perennials, they look very, very attractive. So the leaves of this species are blue at the base, turning green higher up. They get pretty kind of purplish blue flowers in August. And the seed heads are attractive too. Coastal panic grass. You'll see it has really, from the photo, like arching leaves, and it actually prefers dry sandy soil. And I love to mention this one because lots of people are looking for a ground cover. So it's always a good idea to have some living green ground covers instead of overdoing the mulch. So this is a great one. It's also a lawn alternative, a no-mow lawn alternative. And one of the best things about it is it prefers dry, shady areas. So those spots that are really tough to grow grass, like under trees, this is what you want, Pennsylvania sedge. All right, so let me see. Excellent, we've got some time. So I'm gonna stop sharing this and take you over to the website for a little bit. Before I do that, are there any questions?
There's a question from Donna. I'm going to allow you to speak.
Hi, Donna.
Okay.
I don't know. I looked at the chat, but I didn't see anything typed in.
Okay, well, go ahead and type your question in the chat, Donna, okay?
While she's typing in, I'll start switching over. Actually. Okay, any question yet from Donna, or should I go on?
Yes, I see the question right here. So I'm not sure if this is from Donna, it might be from someone else. Where would you go for native plant seeds? I haven't seen PA sedge for sale as a plant. Can it be mowed?
Okay, I've seen it for sale as a plant. Let me just show you quickly the where to buy page. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. They're listed by county. And let me just go down. Sorry about this. Like, I hope I don't make you seasick. But let me go down to, there are some really great online retail nurseries and some wholesale nurseries. So a good one, I mean, these are all good ones, all of these. The wholesale ones, if you were gonna do a large area and replace it with Pennsylvania sedge, you might be buying enough plants to go wholesale. I would just try contacting these New Jersey-based nurseries because I'm pretty sure, especially ones like Pinelands Nursery, possibly Pinelands Direct, which is the retail version, do carry it. I don't know where to tell you to get seeds. I know that Bowman's Hill in Pennsylvania does a lot of seed collecting there, so they might be a good place to reach out to find out if they have that seed available or if they know of some place that does. And that's probably the best I can do to answer that. Oh, and as far as mowing it, yes, you can. A lot of people will just mow it once or twice a year. I mean, you can mow it more frequently if you want, but the way it grows, it never gets too tall. It kind of has a flowing look, like the leaves kind of like lay over. And it's really pretty attractive just that way. Some people will give it a mow in late summer, early fall, just to kind of neaten it up before the winter. So it's up to you.
Okay, we have a second question from Donna. And I apologize, Donna doesn't have a microphone, so that made speaking challenging.
Oh. Yeah.
Donna's question is, will the Jersey Friendly crew come and help with my Seaside Park yard? I have been planting natives for a few years now, but it is not fast enough for my neighbor.
Let me look at that question. But it's not fast enough? I'm not sure what she means. Wait, let me look. Q&A. Oh, okay, wait, now I see it. But it's not fast enough for my neighbor. I guess Donna means it's not filling in fast enough with the plants. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Unfortunately, we can't go to individual people's yards. We really don't have enough staff to do that sort of thing. But if let me show you a feature on the website. First of all, because this kind of relates to it. We have an Ask an Expert feature where you can put in your name, your email. You have to pick your county, so for you, it would be Ocean County, and it will go to that Rutgers Cooperative Extension Office. You type in your question. If you have a photo that you want to attach, you can, and someone at that Rutgers office, either a staff member or a master gardener, will answer your question. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by fast enough. I mean, if it's they're just growing slowly, or, you know, you could fill in with a few more plants. Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that, but, you know, this is a good way to get some answers to specific gardening, landscaping type questions. And if they can't answer it, I also see the questions. So like, I will jump in and try to help as well. Okay, how's that? Oh, but get any more questions? Oh, they're not filling in the landscape as quickly as she would like. Yeah, I mean, some native plants are, they're slow growing. That's actually a feature. Let me go to the plant database and show you that you can. Well, let's use the Pennsylvania sedge as an example. Each of the plants that's in the database has a page of details about it. So this is the one for the Pennsylvania sedge. You know, description, it'll tell you if it supports, you know, wildlife. And then a lot of these are related to the search filters. You can also search, which, you know, I'll show you that in a minute, but by colors, bloom colors, and when it blooms. But if you go all the way down, it will tell you the height, spread, and the growth rate. So, you know, if she wanted things to fill in a little faster, she could look for plants that have a high growth rate. You know, if she ends up having some that are lower, it'll take longer. Let me X that out. All right, so this is what I showed you before. Let me just show you how you would select some of the filters. So you would come in to the database. You can actually search for a specific plant by typing in either the common or the scientific name, and it'll come up. Another feature I wanted to show you is that we have a few plants in here that don't belong. So this is an invasive plant, Norway maple. So you should not plant that in your yard. And we want you to be aware in case someone were to use that search filter and search for something like this, or maybe Japanese barberry, or some of the other plants that have become invasive, they're not native, and they've been planted in people's yards before anyone realized that they would, you know, kind of turn out to be invasive and escape. So what happens is they are seeding outside areas, including forests. They're escaping from people's yards, basically, and spreading everywhere, which is bad. Why? Because they don't support wildlife at all. Wildlife, you know, they didn't evolve with these plants from Asia or South America, wherever, you know, they might come from, and they can't eat it. They can't use it for any reason. And it's actually displacing the native plants that they do need to survive. So when you come across one of these, you click on it, what you'll see is a list of native alternatives. So if you absolutely love that plant, but it turns out, you know, it's invasive and you shouldn't plant it, it gives you a list of alternatives. Okay, so for other ones, let me use this as an example. Now you can click on it and get the full details like I showed you before. So just to, you know, quickly show you some of the different, I showed you the plant type. You can, you know, select yes. And every time I would make a selection, you know, the number of plants that meet all these requirements, you know, would drop. You can select by bloom color, as I mentioned, you know, when it blooms, so that you can make sure you have 3 seasons of bloom. That would be, you know, supportive of wildlife. Deer resistance, you know, is a tricky one. If you're going to pick deer resistance, you are going to shorten your list most likely, but that's really important for some people, you know, depending where you live. And again, attracting wildlife, you know, how much light you have, your soil type, your pH, all of this, soil moisture, drought tolerance. And then of course, if you live near areas where salt water is a problem, you know, you would select these filters. Okay, I just want to show you a bit about the interactive yard. Also, let me just run through, this part of the website actually explains, what I mentioned, why fertilizers are a problem, why we should care about water quality and do something about it in our yard. This section, has the interactive yard feature, which I'll show you in a minute. You can go to a page specifically about how to landscape for pollinators, how to landscape in the pinelands, a page about rain gardens, and of course the 8 steps. I'll show you that for a minute. So these are the steps I talked about. So let me just give you an example. You would click on the step, and then there's a page of information about it. This one, explaining why healthy soil is important, how it's alive, how healthy soil has those pore spaces in it, which are so important for holding water and air so that, roots of plants will be healthy. And also how to test your soil, right? A link to a video. The best place to get your soil tested is the Rutgers Soil Testing Lab. Very reasonably priced. You get it back in your results back in a couple weeks. And this shows you how to take the sample. So lots of information, lots of links to other information that will help you. About compaction, which is a problem with soil. You run over it with equipment, heavy objects, and it gets compacted over time, and then you lose that really important pore space for the air and the water for the soil organisms to move around. So yeah, that's just an example of all the information that's on each page for each of the 8 steps. And let's take a look at the interactive yard. So this is kind of what I showed you that screenshot, a couple of screenshots of. So this, again, gives you lots of ideas of things you can do in your yard to make it more environmentally friendly. Now, this is a good one. It might not be something that a lot of people are ready to do, but if you were going to redo your driveway, for example, this shows you, like, take out that asphalt, and they're taking out the old sidewalk. So you do a lot of clicking, kind of removing something, and then putting in a new driveway that's made of pavers, and then there's also permeable asphalt and permeable concrete, and that lets the water pass through. So you're helping to reduce runoff. And then there's a section about, removing the invasive plants. Give you a little demo of that. So this little area has a couple invasive plants. It has Japanese barberry, so you can take that out, and winter creeper, which is a type of euonymus, and you can take that out. Each time a plant is mentioned in the interactive yard, you can click on the little information icon, and it will tell you about it. This one's telling you why it's invasive and why you should not plant it, and why you should take it out. So that's actually an important step for people who do want to make their yards more environmentally friendly, is to kind of look around and see, do I have any invasive plants? If you're not sure what's invasive, there is a page on the website. Let me show you really quickly. I won't click on it, but if you go to that page, avoid invasive plants, that links you to some resources that will tell you exactly what's considered invasive, and then, helps you with tips of how to take it out. And then, these tabs, you start adding beds around the house. As an example, so you're adding an area. And it's not that you would have to necessarily do all of these steps or any of the steps, but it does, kind of give you the idea of how you could make that transformation. And then you start adding plants. So just like in the database, there are a couple of tricky additions here. If I were to click, yeah, let's add calorie pear, it tells me, no, not a good idea. Don't use this plant. It's was planted in a lot of yards in the 1990s and on up through the early 2000s, but not a good idea. They found out it's invasive and it's escaping into the wild. So, and you keep clicking. And again, you could look up each of these plants until you fill the bed. So it's a fun tool to play with. Each of these drop-down boxes has you do different things. You can add a pollinator garden, you can add a vegetable garden. And then when you're done, it's that view that we saw before in my PowerPoint. Anytime you have a question that's a specific gardening question, I showed you ask an expert, but if you have a question about the website itself, you click on the little envelope and the question will come to me, and I'm always happy to answer. One thing I do want to point out is, as we also have a webinar series. We have a conference each year, but that's been on hold because of COVID. The conference is normally in October. We have great speakers. We have a native plant sale. Right now we have a series of webinars. And the current one is what's bugging your Jersey friendly yard. So it's all about insects, good and bad, the beneficials. The next one coming up is actually tonight. So we have a speaker from the New Jersey Department of Agriculture talking about spotted lanternfly and crazy worms, two invasive plants currently kind of spreading in New Jersey. I don't know if they've been spotted in Atlantic County. There have been a couple sightings of spotted lanternfly in Ocean County. Where they're really heavy right now is on the western side of the state, especially Hunterdon, Warren, any states up near Pennsylvania, because that's where they're coming from right now. And then we have one a month, one in May, one in June. Okay, we have resources too, alphabetically by topic. That you can find information about how to compost, how to container garden with native plants, all kinds of gardening resources, a lot about gardening for wildlife. So that's a good resource on the website. All right, I will pause for if there are any questions about the website or just about, any questions you have about Jersey friendly landscaping.
What time does the webinar start tonight?
Oh, the webinar, I'll go back to that. The webinar starts at 7. It's a 1-hour webinar. And you can register by clicking on that link. Go to the website, click on that link. And it starts at 7, 1 hour, like this one. And yeah, he's an entomologist with New Jersey Department of Agriculture. So he has spent his career trying to manage invasive insects. So these are the 2 new ones, and he's very knowledgeable. The next couple are interesting as well. Heather Holmes is a very popular author of books about native bees, and she just had a new book about native wasps, all about pollinators. She's a great speaker, so she'll be here in May. They're all at 7 o'clock on the second Tuesday of the month. And then the June one, if anyone's familiar with Pat Sutton, she is a naturalist and an educator. She's from Cape May, and she's going to talk about dragonflies and damselflies, and she's another excellent speaker. So you can make it, join us, free, of course. One last thing I can mention, if there aren't any other questions, is that we're doing something, actually starting it in our watershed, which is Barnegat Bay watershed, a certification program. And I know there are other certification programs out and about now. Sustainable Jersey is a big one, a very important one. So we're tying in with that one as much as we can. But to have your yard be Jersey friendly certified. And what that will mean is, you are doing many of the 8 steps that we went over, putting native plants in your yard, capturing stormwater, using less fertilizer, pesticides, all of that. So we'll have a program for residents and one for schools and one for towns. So that, each of those can get organized, certified as being Jersey friendly. So we're pretty excited about that. It's not ready yet. It'll be launched probably within the year. So we're looking forward to it. And eventually we hope it goes statewide. All right, I think I'm going to stop sharing unless there are any other questions about the website. All right, well, thank you so much for having me. Check out the website. A lot of people find it very useful, especially the searchable plant database. We always try to answer your questions. If the person who had the question about the Pennsylvania sedge, if you shoot me an email, I'll try to find out and send, respond where you might be able to find the plants. It's just like off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I'll search with some of those nurseries and see if they do carry them. Because it is really it's a great ground cover, especially in shady areas. I have, in my yard, I have oak trees in the back and, a lot of moss and, lawn, grass, turf grass is meant to be in full sun and not in shade. And it just doesn't do well over time. So I'm actually thinking of doing the same thing, putting Pennsylvania sedge back there, see how it does.
I put your email in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so busy talking. Yeah, I could have done that too. Yeah, if you do have other questions, please don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to email me. Another great webinar source, if you do want to learn more about this topic, the Native Plant Society of New Jersey, type in their website for you guys. They have webinars as well, like all about native plants. So if you are interested in that, and also Rutgers Cooperative Extension, they do a series of Earth Day. It started with Earth Day 2020, right? It was Earth Day at home. They did it for the whole month of April. And now it's Earth Day every day. So they're continuing these webinars on a lot of really great topics. So if you just, Google Earth Day at home, the page will pop up. You can learn more about many of these same topics. And like I said, Native Plant Society, if you're interested in learning more about native plants, is another good one. And don't forget to look at the Barnegat Bay Partnership website. It's funny because I work for Barnegat Bay Partnership, but I also, work on the Jersey Friendly Arts, which is part of Barnegat Bay Partnership. So, a little of everything. And it's the connection, right? We really, really care about clean water and healthy habitat for our wildlife. And there's so much that people can do about that in their own yards, and not only make it healthier for everyone in the state and for the wildlife in the state, but actually healthier for, you as well. So.
Karen, thank you so much for sharing all of these great resources and spending your time with us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you again for having me. Thanks everyone who came today. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something and you go home and this is a good time of the year to get started.
Great. All right. Well, have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.